Okay, observations in family daycare. Now, this is one of the things that I deal with all the time with you guys in family daycare. There are challenges. You are the only person there. It's not like in a centre-based service where they get released for their time, and there's a whole range of other contingencies in place in a long daycare service or a centre-based service than there are in family daycare. So this is my take, and this is how I think it would work easier for you. So, you know, again, with all of my information, do with it what you will. But when there was a change in 2019 where we came from the old accreditation system and we moved into the standard system, and so many things were thrown out. So if you've ever heard that old saying, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So we got rid of so much, but there were in those previous days, pre the national quality standards, there were some really good practices that gave us a really good indication as educators as to where children were developmentally. And I think that we've lost some of that. And I think that if we reflect back on those older ways or those strategies prior to the standards, there's a lot of good in there that we can still be using. So this is how I look at it, and I've done it this way, and I was an early childhood practitioner for many, many years, and I was very successful in that role as other roles. But when a child came to me, regardless of long daycare or not, when a child came to me, one of the first things that I would do a milestone checklist. And it's not about measuring children, and it's not about being inequitable. It's not about that. It's about having a look at that child and where that child is developmentally. Now, we all know that humans develop at certain rates and maturation goes at certain periods, and just is the way of the world. It is the way that humans operate. So by having a checklist when they first come to you as educators, that gives you an idea of where they are developmentally. It gives you an indication of whether there is something that you need to address, or whether there is something that maybe they're really advanced and you need to cater for that also. So there's the ebbs and the flows of, you know, where children are developmentally. So the first thing I would do when children arrive in your care is I would do a checklist. So I would do a milestone checklist of where they are developmentally. Now, I'm going to put some links here. I'll find some good ones for you. So with the checklist, it will tell you where they are physically, emotionally, socially, where they should be for their age. That doesn't mean that's not the be all and end all, and you cannot use a checklist in isolation. There is no doubt about that. That's not even a debate. It's not about using a checklist in isolation. So by having a checklist though, you get an idea of where that child is, where they should be, and if they're not there, what you can do. If they have surpassed that as far as developmental ages and those sorts of things go, then it still gives you an idea of what you can be doing for them in their educational program. The other thing that I think, now, before I move on from checklists, the younger the child, for me, the younger the child, the more frequent the checklist. So if you've got a child that's come to you under 3, then I would probably be doing, so let's say under 3, I would probably be doing checklists probably every 6 months, I would think. If they're over 3, then probably every 12 months. Now, if you've got before and after school care children, the teachers would be doing a whole range of things at school, so that there's probably less expectation on you to worry about where that is. So I would be doing those once every 12 months maybe, and then maybe even less. It really does depend on the child. So before and after school care, 12 months. And that will just give you an idea of where they are developmentally, whether or not you need to assist or provide additional or whatever that is. Okay, so that's checklist. I think that you should do this upon enrolment for each child, regardless of the age group. You do it upon enrolment, and then whatever that looks like afterwards. I also believe that anecdotal records are the way to go. And I believe that more with family daycare, because you are by yourself and you are operating this education and care service often without any support at all for many of you. So by taking anecdotal records, you're getting a snippet of everything that's happening, and you know how that child is, and what they're engaged in. So you might gather, well, I don't know, you've got one full-time child, let's say, who's in Monday to Friday, 8 till 5. That would be a full-time position as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm concerned. So you might have, over that week, you might have 12 anecdotal records that have taken you a really small amount of time to do. So they're your 12 anecdotal records. Now, the value of this, in my opinion, now this is all my opinion, the value of anecdotal records is it gives you an opportunity to, like, for me, anecdotal records are like taking a short photograph, if that makes any sense. So these anecdotal records, you reflect back on those over that week or fortnight, whatever your planning cycle is, and you will see threads come out. You will see where your anecdotal records are either gathering the right information or whether they're just missing information. And you know what, as educators, it took me probably 2 years as a practitioner to really get my anecdotal information right and to get my reflections right. And mind you, I started in a time when we weren't really reflecting on our educational program. We were doing theme-based, and you know, hey, there's good things to themes and there's bad things to themes. So we'll talk about that at another day. But your anecdotal information upon reflection, for me, is invaluable. So I think that when you gather the right anecdotal information, the more you do, the more you'll get better at this. So I know there are a lot of family daycare services out there that saying, you know, you need to have one piece of documentation per month per child, or for me, that's truly not enough. That does not meet the Act. The Act states that you have to have a range of documentation that shows children's interests, needs and abilities. So a little bit more than that, but so I would be doing a range of anecdotal information. Now, taking anecdotal information is as simple as wearing, like today I've got pants on. Today I would have, like I would always have a pen, whether that pen be in my top or whatever. So I would have a pen and a sticky note. I would write down what, so let's use my daughter as the example. So her name is Eloise. So I would say Eloise, I would use just E. I don't have the time to write Eloise. I know who Eloise is. Now, if I've got two E's, then I would write ES, so that I know that who that child is. So ES is completed an 8-piece puzzle. Was engaged. So what I'm writing down is the fact. So, and then tomorrow we might have ES asked for an additional puzzle. Now, the day after that, we might go ES stayed at the water activity for 10 minutes. And you might put down what ES was doing and whatever else. So when it comes time to reflect on each of these, we can now start to see a pattern emerging in ES's interests, her abilities, whether that be her language or her patience,